It's funny that you mentioned that, Dr. Reynolds. There was a question here about how you're coping with the bar being closed, but anyway.
I'm not, mate.
Oh, we'll kick into it so we're not keeping people too long. First question is for Henry. There are a lot of road accidents on the rise and caused by people from overseas with international licences. I feel there need to be more rules and testing. I was in a car accident where I nearly lost my life. What are your thoughts about more rules around overseas licences?
I guess you got swings and roundabouts, right? Roundabouts probably very appropriate. I recently went over to America for 3 weeks, and I forgot my license, and so my partner needed to drive, and they recognised my license system, right? So if you want to put in a whole bunch of training, like regimented training or whatever, and you have to pass a driving test and you have to do this and do that, well, then the same's going to apply to you. So the next time you go to another country, well, they're going to apply the same thing. You have to do a 3-week course. You have to go and sit a course to go and pass it. So is that really what you want as well? You cause an accident, you're up for costs, you're up for damages, but I think that there's got to be some kind of rationality in terms of, I want to go to America and drive there. Now, Kate did end up driving on the wrong side of the road, and we were looking at 3 lanes of headlights, because after about 4 days, you kind of go back into your normal Australian situation, and it's kind of, yep, it seems right, and I think I was directing the right way to go, and yeah, we were in 3 lanes of oncoming traffic. So, there's an argument for and against there, but if you want the freedom to drive in other countries, then you've got to also have the same policy reciprocally. So I would think that we wouldn't want to restrict people driving on our roads, just hope for them to crash into us or go through Britannia roundabout. And we just say, you're not allowed to go anywhere near Britannia.
There's a lot of South Australians shouldn't go near Britannia roundabout, but anyway. Thanks for that, Henry. Stephen, how can your organisation assist in changing the Public Sector Act 2009, which is being abused and misused by high-ranking officials in state departments to get rid of innocent ageing workers, in particular older women who are losing their homes and are being pushed into the streets?
Australians for Better Government, there are a lot of issues, obviously, that we need to address. A lot of them are state issues as well. We have big problems with our state constitutions because, unlike the federal constitution, state constitutions can be changed through legislation. So, in a big way, the states actually need more reform than the federal system. Now, when it comes to the particular issue that the question is talking about, we don't really have a policy on it. At this point in time, we're open to hear about it, but Australians for Better Government is not a political party. A lot of people get confused with what we are. We don't focus on big policy issues. We don't have a position on net zero or anything like that. We want to appeal to the broad range of the political spectrum. So we try and not focus on that sort of stuff. We focus more on the structural reform that needs to take place in the constitutional reform, and also educating people on the actual system itself. So, the issue is probably very important, but it's probably too specific for us to focus on.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, as a committee, as a committee, in that we support obviously what Australians for Better Government stand for. Individually, we might have views around policies individually, but as Australians for Better Government, we're sort of apolitical on a lot of that stuff. Michael, what has shocked you most from your time in Parliament?
I went in with very low expectations, so not a lot, but look, I think it's that old rule in life of he who holds the gold makes the rules. So federal parliament is very powerful because they control the flow of funds. They have the greatest ability to extract tax from you by force, indirectly, but you're going to pay your taxes because they're the ones who have the guns in this country. That's how it works. So probably how money is spent and how it is wasted everywhere. So I sit in budget lockup every year for 6 hours with a journalist and have a lot of fun going through every single page. There's not a page that wouldn't cut. There is so much excessive waste, and I think the way that government supports probably ridiculous cultural change and silly unnecessary laws is by funding the wrong things. They fund all sorts of excess in every single facet of our lives, and we need to go through that budget with, a chainsaw, I would say. There is so much waste, and they extract way more taxes from you than they need to, and the way they fund the legislation they pass every single day they pass bills. There's more than a bill that passes every single day we're there. I don't know why, but there is. And they're able to fund that because they have an unlimited capacity to tax you.
Mark, do the major parties make it too hard for independents and smaller parties to run in elections? And we'll make it more relevant to South Australia, I think, if you can answer that.
Yes, absolutely. That's actually the whole intention of the two-party system. So, at the end of any election, they have a joint standing committee. And the joint standing committee, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to have a joint standing committee which would then review the election outcome, but not how the election was held. And then they would make amendments, and the public would ask for amendments, and of course they never did it. So, I'll give you an example. 2010 election, state election, Labor put out a whole lot of information that looked like it was coming from Isabel Redmond, which was the opposition, and they sent stuff out to every person with a reply address that said Isabel Redmond, box whatever, which was Labor Party, and they were asking how you're going to vote, and would you like postal ballot applications. So if you were a supporter of the Liberals at that stage, you would have replied back, yes, I'll be voting for you, could I have postal ballot applications? And it would go back to the Labor Party. The Labor Party will then send out to you an application for a postal ballot. You'd send it back again, thinking you were dealing with Isabel Redmond, and they binned them. So I think it was 76,000 people didn't get their hand of ballot papers included in the election, and when we added up, I think it was 117,000 people in South Australia's votes went missing. That's the kind of thing they do beyond the legislative, so they're crooks.
Can I add to that? There's a new act that's been changes to the Electoral Reform Act. Basically the Liberal Party and Labor Party, if you get, whichever party get 33% of the vote, get about $4 million in funding from the taxpayer. So all the taxes you pay now pay the political parties to fund their elections.
That's right, sorry.
However, if you're your own party, you basically, if you're less than 33%, then you get $5.50 for every dollar, and if you're a brand new one, you get like $8. But it's based on your last year's, the last election's performance. So what's now going to happen is that any kind of minor party, say for myself, I can't accept a donation.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Yeah. So we can't accept donations, whereas somebody running as an individual can accept up to 5,000, but a political party can't get any more donation unless what the government's given you. So the Liberal Party thought this was a great idea because all the donors hated them after land tax. So they were all leaving them in droves. So they thought, great, we're going to get $4 million. But in the next coming election, if you follow the polls, they're only going to get, I think in one poll showed 19% of the vote, which is well under the 33%. So now they're going to go from $4 million worth of funding down to $2 million. And the next election, because they didn't spend that very well in the first place, they'll go down to even less. And so basically what happens is any minor party can't get ahead because they can't raise any money. The maximum we can really get is I can get $5,000, the taxpayer, thank you very much, you're going to pay me $5,000, but don't worry, I'm going to give you $3,000 back as an enrolment fee. So in order to convince 1.1 million people to vote for me, I've got $2,000. That's barely going to pay for an email account and a website. So what they've done now with the legislation is basically make it impossible for any minor party to get any kind of electoral funding, and in the Constitution, money is the ability to communicate. That comes down to freedom of speech. It should be challenged in the High Court, if you know anyone who's been in the High Court before, that'd be great.
So that just
What used to happen, I think this is pertinent, you used to get a guide on how to vote. I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember that. Every single voter in South Australia used to get a guide on how to vote at an election at state and federal level. And they get that at council level. So it used to say, this is how you vote, you've got to have it in different languages, all that sort of stuff. And we started demanding about 18 years ago that they include a list of the candidates. That way you could at least know who's running, you could look into if you wanted to. And the result of our push to get the candidates included in that book was they dropped the book altogether. And then the following election, obviously, people didn't know that what election was on, didn't know how to vote, where to go, everything else, and it was just a kerfuffle. So hold free and informed. You know, but they have. They did say to me straight away that as I registered my party in March, and then they told me that as of June, July onwards, I couldn't raise any money at all. I couldn't ask for it and or receive it. But you can ask for money in advance, up to $8, I think it is. But you have to be a party that's performed at a certain level first. In other words, we can't get that at all.
Yeah, so if you did well last time, you get money this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So SA Vest with one person gets like $1 million. The Greens get like $1 million.
We're happy to accept donations afterwards in the millions. But you have to do it. We'll have to do it at the back door, so it'll be cash. And yeah, we'll work it out.
Good work. Chris, in which section of the Constitution does it explain how political parties should be run?
It doesn't.
It doesn't in there at all. Absolutely right.
Do I get it right, did I?
You should know. Right? You're better, can't you? There is another one here for you, though. Is the Australia Act of 1986 constitutional?
Constitutionally valid.
Constitutional valid.
Is the Australia Act of 1986 constitutional?
Oh, yes. Is this on? They've censored me, haven't they? Oh, yes, it's coming out of the British Parliament because the same that the constitutions came out. And I mean, what's it doing? It's only cutting the power of the monarch to dictate to the Governor-General what she can do. It's not even that. It's actually it's the British monarch, and so that's why they had to make it an Australian monarch. So the Australian monarch still sort of sits at the top and receives the letters and the advice from his Prime Minister as to who he wants. Work out who's who, he, she, there. The King, the advice from the Prime Minister to the King as to who the Prime Minister wants to be the Governor-General. So that's all it basically does. And the Governor-General just basically sits there to receive advice and sign the documents of what the government is doing. So yes, the Australia Act only cuts the links with Britain. It doesn't change the Westminster system as such. We just change the name of the monarch.
Because that causes a lot of confusion in circles, obviously, saying that there's a lot of issues in regards to that. It's caused a lot of debate there. Stephen, do we need to reform the preference system?
No?
Look, my view is that preferences are probably the better system. If you look at the UK election, a lot of people advocate for first past the post here in this country. The first past the post system gave the United Kingdom Keir Starmer, and he's in there for 5 years now. Now, if it was a preference system in the UK, it wouldn't have been the result that you got. Keir Starmer still may have won, but he wouldn't have won as overwhelmingly as what he did. But when it comes to, I guess, the other extreme, which is our preference system of compulsory preferences all the way down, I think the actual best system is in New South Wales, which is where I'm from, which is in New South Wales state elections, which is optional preferential voting. So you can put a 1 there and walk away, or you can number every box, or you can number as many boxes as you want. So you can use preferences if you want to, but if you don't want to, you can just put that 1. So it rewards primary votes more than the federal system does. So that's something that I think we should look at. I think we should probably look at the New South Wales system of optional preferential voting as the best system.
I've looked at that as well myself, and I think, if there's any candidate, because my recommendation is, and a lot of others say, you're voting for a candidate, not a party. So ultimately, if the candidate's on the nose with you, if you've got 6 candidates and 2 of them you would absolutely not have anything to do with, why should you be compelled to vote for that person? I mean, that's kind of where
Just on that, butting in, but if you've voted for councils before, it's quite interesting because you get a guide that comes out to your house of who's running, it tells you all about them. You've got the option not to vote at all, or you can optionally preference. And that's run by the AEC. So the Electoral Commission runs that. So to convert over to optionals, just as easy as that. They don't want that for a reason.
Next one's for Henry. Should we abolish political parties in council?
Well, we don't. Well, no, because like you talk about freedom, right? So you want to have a system that's free. The reality is that in a democracy, the dominant strategy, if you have 100 people, say if we're all 100 people, well, the idea is to get as much power as you can. So if you have a democracy, then you want 51% of the vote. You don't want 52% of the vote, because then you're weakening your power base. You don't want too much of that power, because you've got more mouths to feed. So then you have 51. And so of that 51, internally, you want to then control, you want to have a sub-faction with 26 members in it. And then of that faction, you then want 14. And then you want 8. And then you want 5, 3, 2, and 1. Right? And so that's how you then control 100 people in a democracy. They will naturally form. Okay, so it is just a natural human trait to then form these groups and go through. The idea that people are going to be independent and make up their own mind in every single decision, particularly when you've got things from health to road traffic act to the military, not everyone's going to have the same kind of passion on it. And so the first thing they're going to do is they're going to form groups. And humans are naturally inclined to form groups and friendships with each other. It's how we work. Like if you said, hey, I want this room to go and make groups of 5, we'd do it like that, and we'd be able to quickly go and do it. And you said, hey, we're going to run an athletic race, and whoever wins gets $100. Well, we're all going to quickly going to assess each other of people who are going to form the best team to do that, right? So it's just a natural part of humanity to form groups and then to act in concert with each other. I think the Labor Party model of if you don't conform with that group, you get kicked out, that's pretty horrendous. But at the end of the day, that's the freedom that you have. So if you want to create a free society without these roles, then that's what it is. Now, in councils, unlike the other states, the political parties don't get involved, which is a bit rubbish. The Labor Party very much gets involved, and the Liberal Party turns a complete blind eye to it. And basically councils turn into a feeding ground for the Labor Party and a source of their candidates, just like we saw in Dunstan as well. So that's my view. If you want freedom, then you've got to let people do what they want. If you don't want freedom, well then start mandating more rules.
I just think we ought to eliminate the councils. I absolutely hold that view strongly. The states you can't get rid of. The federal government is constituted, as you know. But where I am in the Gold Coast, I said to the mayor, I was sitting at a table with him last week, and I said, I have to tell you, Tom, there is not a person that I've met in 5 years I've lived here, not one person on the Gold Coast likes your council. Everybody hates you. This is me telling the mayor that everybody hates your council.
That's the same as the Adelaide Hills Council, mate.
Absolutely massive. Because, I mean, it's good when you talk on the phone, you call the receptionist, she's lovely, but try dealing with anyone in the council. I said even tradesmen run the other way the moment you say you're doing the council. So, yes, they and apparently they've got records for dealing and interpreting state laws. And our Lord Mayor, Tom, I didn't realise while I was sitting there with him, is in trouble this month because he's actually turned out to be doing hopping deals with developers, knowing what was going on, and he's sold land one way and then bought it the other way, but it's all now been exposed. So I don't think, Tom, even I can help you, mate. I think he's got a real PR problem, but the councils need to be gotten rid of.
Advocate the other way.
No.
I don't like the Adelaide City Council, by the way, and I'm currently moving a motion on the 11th of November to sack them. Okay, so and they should be, because the way that it works, like 75% of our rates come from business owners, and basically the people elected aren't looking after them. So whilst I agree with this council, the other argument to that is if you spend $1 and you give it to the federal government, you don't know which state's going to pork barrel. It could be spent in Northern Territory, it could be spent in Sydney, Melbourne, and they might get a whole bunch of road infrastructure lining the streets in gold to Albanese's house, right? So you pay your federal taxes, it goes to Albanese's driveway. But if you pay state taxes, it goes to Malinowskis, and then he'll pork barrel whichever state electorate he wants. But then if you pay your rates to your local council, it goes to you. So the $1 that you spend to the federal could go anywhere. The $1 you go to your state goes to your state. The $1 that goes to your council goes within 10 minutes of where you're living.
I find that really difficult to digest.
No, rubbish. Doesn't have
The money that they spend gets spent on you, not pork barreling some random state electorate. So the money that you get comes back to you for your benefit, not going to pork barreling some random state
You should see
electorate.
the salaries these chief executives get.
I am with you. $500,000 I see. It's ridiculous.
No, I don't agree with you.
I know we're running out of time.
Topic, but it's a good topic.
No way.
But I just want to squeeze this in because it's definitely worth the thought. They say all politics is local, and the more local you can get, the better. But it's my view that we should be abolishing both state and local government because we're over-governed in this country. Now, it's not going to happen because, as Dr. Reynolds will tell you, the states have their own sovereignty and their own power. But there is provisions in the Constitution to create new states.
Yes.
And what I would look at doing or proposing, I mean, a lot of people say that local government is unconstitutional because it's not mentioned in the Constitution. They're creations of the states, so I don't think that's a valid argument. But what we could look at doing is removing local government and then creating more states and having better representation.
Yes.
That's about it.
We'll do that.
Michael, should lobbyists in Parliament be abolished?
Yes.
I would love to, yes. Yeah, if you give me the power. Falling short of that, I can't remember who it was that said politicians should wear like badges like NASCAR drivers do to show who they're owned by. I think we should make our politicians wear badges for who they've given a parliamentary pass to. Then we know who's owning them.
Transparency is what
Transparency. Mark, there have been a lot of rallies and protests lately. Do you think they are effective?
That's hard because if I've run 2 rallies, I've got another one coming up, and I didn't organise the first 2. I ran them here, but I didn't, come up with the concepts for them. I think it does a little bit because, for instance, say the first one, which was inadvertent messaging, was NSM, which was kind of very racist against migrants, but I sold it as anti-mass migration, and when I got to go on media all the time, I talked about hospitals, I talked about housing, I talked about roads and infrastructure, and I talked about water and power, and those things made a difference, and we now see other people talking about those topics, and we see the government hearing it, and we see some sections of the Liberal Party sort of have left the front bench to go to the back bench because they want to talk about these same topics. So I think it has an effect, maybe not the effect we would have liked, but it does have an effect because it gets people talking. And the amount of people I noticed in Adelaide when they were individually interviewed on what they thought about the rally had really good things to say. They were thinking, they were saying, we need housing, we've got homeless people here, we want them into houses. We've got problems with the roads, we've got problems with healthcare, we've got ramping, we've got hospitals running out, critical. And they were, so I think it was educational, if nothing else.
Thanks, Mark. We've got to wind it up because it's starting to get a bit late as well. I believe Stephen's going to catch a plane as well. But this one for Stephen, and then we'll ask a question for all of you. Stephen, if we elect the Governor-General, would that automatically make Australia a republic? And if so, should we refer to the position as President?
The answer is no, because the Governor-General would still be the Queen's representative, or the Crown's representative. So, no, it wouldn't make us a republic. And in terms of the name, I guess that would be up to the Australian people to decide whether we change the name to President or not. My personal opinion is keep it as Governor-General. That's more of an Australian name, and it's a tip of a hat to our history. So I would keep it as Governor-General.
And this one's just to all of you. Should we, well, I know what Chris's response is going to be, but anyway, should we have a Prime Minister, and who would you like it to currently be instead of Aldo?
Me? I could do it, I'm sure of it. I'd clean myself up, brush my teeth better, get up early in the morning. No, of who? Like, is there a choice? Or just anyone?
You choose me. I'm open to it.
Okay. I don't know. I spent a lot of time, I'll be really quick, I spent a lot of time trying to advocate for Aboriginal people and make us all united. And last week I sort of worked out that's just not going to happen right now. And so I've got a real thing for Jacinta, because I think she's a good spokesperson. She talks united, and I like that. And that's why I started United Voice. I think we have to all be united to have any effect on the future, and we are seeing too much division, particularly racial division in the recent years. So I kind of like the centre of the people who are out there, and Hasty, of course. So there's a few. I think if all of us got together and started one party now, So I did write to them to say, I've got a nice party, you can use the name, take over as leader. But anyway, it won't go there.
Look, on the first question, I think it is sensible to have a Prime Minister running the House of Representatives, but that's about it. We have to limit the power to that. In terms of who it should be, I think the best candidates are probably in the Senate. Now, everyone will tell you that you can't be Prime Minister if you sit in the Senate. Well, my presentation just went into how the Prime Minister is not even mentioned in the Constitution. Well, where is this notion that you have to be in the lower house to be Prime Minister? So if it's not mentioned in the Constitution that we should have a Prime Minister, then it's also not mentioned in our Constitution that you have to be in the lower house to be Prime Minister. Now, I think it would be probably sensible to be in the lower house, but there's no provision there other than conventions to say that you can't be Prime Minister. So maybe we should have a Prime Minister from the Senate and test it out, because I think the best people are up there, and maybe there's still hope for Ralph a bit yet, mate.
People like Alexander will come to mind as well from a lot of...
He doesn't want it. He doesn't want to be a leader. Yeah, I mean, sure, why not have a Prime Minister? You call it President if you want, you can change the powers if you want. But I do think that there is a lot of merit to having an executive arm and a legislative arm, because how can you be a minister and then spend your entire parliament time trying to, win an election and then going and understanding all the legislation that's coming through? You just don't have enough time. And so the bureaucrats will just run you ragged, right? So on every single Tuesday night, I'm at council from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, 8:30. They produce the amount of work that will keep you occupied. If you've ever seen Yes Minister, they're very, very good at it. So I do think having a separation will actually make it their full-time job and potentially be elected to the roles of Defence Minister and all that kind of stuff, and you elect a ministry of arm. But because of their ability to do the job and be good administrators, on the other side, who would it be? Well, I think that the Parliament... I don't think it's, say, take the leadership of the Liberal Party, for example. I was a Liberal Party member for 20 years. I don't think it's not a leadership problem. It's a followership problem. The party doesn't have enough good followers who can promote and support a leader, and so it doesn't matter who the leader is going to be. It's going to be absolute chaos. So George Washington just got held up as this guy who kind of took all the credit, but behind him was the group of people that supported him to take that position. And the Liberal Party, I think, needs a complete wipeout, because all of them come through, and a lot of them come through just political officers. They're just staffers, and then they just rotate through, and then they're actually selected for their ability to just do what they're told. So we need to rethink how politicians go in. We need to attract people who are successful, because at the moment, why the hell would you do it? It's a vicious blood sport, so you're not going to attract the calibre of people that are there. You're not going to attract people who there's really... heads of businesses and things like that. So it doesn't matter who the leader is right now. What matters is it needs a whole new group of followers who are a much higher caliber.
I was talking to a gentleman by the name of David Flint this week. David Flint is the Professor David Flint, and he talks and he teaches constitutional law at the University of Technology in Sydney. I think it's called Subtle Sit or something. Anyway, David is a constitutional law absolute expert, knows it all backwards. And in our conversation, where I love taking him off, he has this wonderful voice. He said, I was standing and talking to some people, probably with a beer in his hand, I suppose, and these were experts, and they said, well, if we didn't have the Westminster system, we agree that the American model of the divisions of powers is the model to go for. You see, what we did was we took that American model, put in that extra clause that said, we're going to then move back to convention. And it was like mixing two colours of paint. You no longer have white, you no longer have green. And we've got this thing that just does not work. It works when you've got, a number of people in either party, but it's still this fight business. It's this total conflict that goes on in the legislature. One says yes, the other's got to say no. What sort of government is this? So yes, I can't think of anyone. We need a leader. There's no doubt about it.
We need
but if we had a leader in this country, what?
We need President Trump.
Yeah, we do. I thought you said Bob Hawke there for a minute. Well, we do. We need a leader. But you see, what could he do? If he was the president, he'd be running the government. And the legislature, you see, the legislature's not giving you a lot of problems. You know, but everybody can go and question his power to do what he's doing in the courts, which is healthy. You try doing it here and see how far you get. You see, so we've got to do something to stop this mixing. You know, but it's impossible for us to go to a Westminster system purely because we're a federation of states. And the power is fundamentally with the states, although they've given it up. So it's no good going back. I was going to read you something, I forgot. There's a statement in the Jefferson's Memorial that's written. If you ever see that character, it's in, you know, it's in the Jefferson Memorial in Washington near the lake. And this one paragraph is fantastic, and it says something like, "It's no good if we were like." If we were like children or men trying to put on our children's clothes as if we were younger. But constitutions were not made by God or angels and are to be evolved and suit the times in which people live. And it's like a man trying to put on the clothes of which he wore when he was young. And he was saying at that time, you need to keep looking at this document so it suits your environment. See, what's happened, I mean, since we did our constitution, we have massive amounts of education. Of course, women are now equal, which they weren't at the time, you know, where they got the vote. But our society has changed. We're more aware, more able, forced to participate in politics. And so it's time we actually had another look at the form of government that suits us. And that's not just me saying choose this or choose that. It needs to be a proper committee having a look at what would suit our environment and take our time to do it.
And that would be a productive committee, this one, wouldn't it, Chris? Yeah. A productive committee, this one, yeah. Actual meaningful committee. Look, I'm not opposed to a state, a Prime Minister or a President if you have those separations of powers. And we just spent about 10 minutes there trying to think of someone. I can't name anyone, but all I can tell you is the person that runs the country should be the person that doesn't want to run the country. Those who aspire to be Prime Minister or President from their time in school, they're the wrong people because they're about themselves. They're not doing it for the right reasons. So that would be my criteria, to really grill the person to the point where you asked them to run. They didn't put their hand up.
Yep. And a big round of applause for all the speakers. And so have you, and it's really heartened me, even though we've got a smaller group. But you guys being here for the few hours that you've been here, listening to lots of different people, just shows how dedicated you are. You fundamentally see something's wrong. So my message to everybody is that continue to have the conversations. We're here to have a lot of information shared today by some really, really good quality speakers, some people that really want to see some change in this nation. But the weight of that shouldn't just fall on the guys that are sitting at the front here. It should sit on every single one of us as South Australians. So the conversations need to continue, not just from us via our platforms, but by you as well, by talking to your neighbours, by talking to people in your groups, bringing people together in your own communities, small communities. I know that there's also, your My Places and other things have started growing. It's keeping those conversations going about how we can do better moving forward, not just as a state, but as a nation. So it's really up to us here. And full credit to you. It's tough sometimes hanging around listening to lots of people speaking for a long period of time, but you've all kept your eyes open. There's no matchsticks out. So thank you all for your commitment to be with us this afternoon. I really, really appreciate it. I'm honoured to have been here with you guys as well. So thank you so much.
Can I bring up something about the Prime Minister? For example, I just found out that in Switzerland, they don't have a Prime Minister. In Switzerland, they rely on the Swiss people to vote for their home affairs. Yes. Why can't we look at the module of the Swiss people, how they've been running it for 150 years and they don't even have a Prime Minister? I would like to hear from the panel advisor here to talk about the Prime Minister in Switzerland, how they run their country. They have been doing it well for 150 years. Why can't we just learn from them? I'm not talking about constitution changes. I'm not talking about calling for referendum. We're talking about people's power. We're talking about 27 million people to compare with 100-something, 200 in Canberra.
Good point, good point.
Thank you.
In the back of my book, I did it when I write about the Constitution, I actually compare 6 countries so you can see the sort of government that we have compared to 6 others. But the example that you give is what the point I'm trying to make in as no good just rushing in and no good just buying into the old thing that we need to get rid of British kings or whatever. We need to have a look and see what suits us. And so that takes some time, some good thinking and some wise people to come up with a decision that we all go, yes, that's the system for us, if that would be possible. But certainly there's some great examples that we need to look at. So it's not a matter of even any of us saying, oh yes, let's do that. Let's not rush it, let's do it properly.
Part of that is people getting involved, as I mentioned earlier. It's everyday Australians getting involved to help with that, those solutions as well.
Just quickly, because I'm seeing some people eager to get out of here. But another country that you might want to keep in mind, and it was Dr. Reynolds that told me this, they have a House of Representatives, they have a Senate, they also have a president running the executive branch, and that's the United States of America. They don't have a prime minister either.
Yeah, they just have a speaker.
Yeah, they just have the Speaker of the House. So we could potentially be without a prime minister. It's just food for thought. But look, speaking of Dr. Reynolds, I just want to say this in closing as well. He's come all the way from the Gold Coast, so thank you very much for coming all this way. Thank you to all of our speakers as well. They've given up time of their day, as all of you as well. But if you can contribute to Dr. Reynolds by buying his book to help him cover the cost of coming down, it would be much appreciated. So I do encourage you to get it. It is a great read. There's a lot of great information in there, and we need to pass that information on to our kids because they need some pride in this country and they need to learn our history as well. So I encourage you to please grab his book.
Thank you very much.